Hello, everybody. We're live. Here we are with IsoNation. We're a little bit late. Sorry, everyone. Only a few minutes.
I'm going to blame those delays that FIFA apply in football matches. You know, so for the worldwide broadcast cameras to get all in sync. That's why we're 3 minutes late. Yeah.
Yeah, for the massive. Yeah, it's only right. You know, people all over the world watching. We're back with Neil Harvey. This is a marketing special today. You might remember Neil spoke to Nick a while back. I managed to grab him today. Hi, Rachel. Rachel saying hello. Everybody that's on now, if you can just give us a love heart, like and share. The more people that get involved, the better it is. The more questions we have, the more of a conversation we have, the better show all round. And don't be scared about giving us some love hearts as we unfold as well, because obviously we know then if we're on the right track or not. Anyway, Neil's back with us. Last time Neil spoke about, well, quite a few things really. It was more marketing, but we were really at the early stages of lockdown back then. So we wanted to catch up with Neil, see what he thought, see what what was really been highlights for him in terms of those communication pieces during lockdown, and also just get an idea of what's been going on. And then also we want to just have a look at what your story has been during lockdown, what your stories have been, and how you're going to tell it as we come out of lockdown. Is that a fair assumption, Neil?
That's it. Yeah, I think a lot of time has passed, hasn't it, since the beginnings of lockdown, and when I first came on with Nick, and we sort of, like, it was a new world and kind of anticipation and excitement at the same time. It was like, what does it mean? I mean, I think for a lot of people, kind of, who'd have thought we'd be here 3 months on, but yeah, it's great to be back and just have a conversation with you this time, Christian, about what we've all experienced in this mad world that we have all found ourselves in.
Yeah, this weird one. Well, let's start with that. I mean, what has stood out for you in these last 3 months?
Yeah, I think it, as I was thinking prior to sort of speaking to you today, is sort of at the beginning, I'm my own sort of worst critic at this, in that, you're sort of lots of predictions and, experts kind of pontificating, saying, we're never going to be the same. And I think probably some things will be the same. Human nature, especially as Brits, we're going to snap back into habit and creatures of habit fairly quickly, I think, and you can almost see that now happening in the sort of towns and high streets. I always try and leave that gap, and someone else thinks that's the gap for them to dart through. And it's like, social distancing is finished then. And so it's kind of we're creatures of habit. But I think probably what I've seen sort of evolve really in life generally is I think there's a bit more warmth between people. There's a recognition of us all going through something. There's I think it perhaps is an overused phrase, but people say it's been a bit of a leveler. It kind of has, but I think it hasn't. I think it's actually highlighted a lot of difficulties and struggles that, fortunately, perhaps you and I haven't experienced. But when you look at the families, large families in flats and smaller properties, no gardens, I don't think it's a leveler for them. We're all lucky, and certainly I am, in having a garden and stuff. But so I think it's probably been, it'll go down in history, that's for sure, as one of the sort of biggest social challenges ever faced by any country, let alone the world over. And I think that filters through into businesses and our jobs and our careers as well. I'm fortunate that I sort of work for myself, but if I employ 25, 30 people, I can't imagine what sort of stresses and worry it has been for people in those sorts of businesses. And and as we'll go on to talk about what those businesses do and how they tell their story and stand by their reputation of the decisions they've made through lockdown, that will be something that defines those businesses forevermore, I'd imagine.
Yeah, just to come back on that, how will this thing that we've gone together, we've gone through all this together, we've got this, we're in a different place now than we were at the beginning of March, we've all experienced it as a community. How's that going to affect the consumer experience, and what impact do you think it's going to have on brand loyalty?
Yeah, so it's funny. You sorry, say that again.
Do you think we'll be reassessing things?
Yeah, so I think one of the interesting things is that because the first things to be stopped are usually like marketing budgets and things like that. You know, it's like, whoa, we've got nothing to market. We can't see our clients. We can't perhaps offer the services to our clients. Let's take in the service industry, of course. I mean, there are all obvious businesses in retail that absolutely, you know, whether that be restaurant and entertainment industry that have actually fully stopped, you know, hook, line and sinker. But let's say that the differences between service industry where you visit a client and things like that, you sort of hear of budgets being completely put on hold. But what I'm actually seeing now in my sort of business and at Media Fusion, we've got a number of clients where their conversations that they're now having with their teams internally are about kind of a back to work strategy. And big technology company in Newbury called Rock Technologies putting together this idea of a protect back to work strategy. And I think what we're going to have is a balance of companies re-engaging with their audiences, re-engaging, saying, you know, what we stood for during this time, and then also that how we've treated our people. And I know I've said this before, in that the employer brand of a business and its reputation as an employer is going to really come under the spotlight during this time. So you've got a combination of reconnecting with the target audience and reconnecting on the services and the products and services that company offers, but also how they their reputation has been assessed in how they've managed their people. And I think that's actually going to become a topic that people might be asking questions about, like, you know, how did you look after your staff during lockdown? You know, what did you do? And that will build on the reputation of that business as an employer, I think. And as I say, you know, at Media Fusion, we're now already getting briefs in where we are asked to help come up with creative messaging to look at helping businesses reconnect with their customers and bring back that loyalty, as you say. So yeah, we're starting to see beginnings of that now, Christian. Yeah.
There's two pieces there I've got questions around. The one is the back to work piece. How do you think that's going to evolve with, because there's a fair amount of sensitivity required there, isn't that, in that back to work, motivational, bringing back onto the culture piece?
Yeah, so I'm sure Rock won't mind me saying, but you know, a Media Fusion client, Rock Technologies, putting together sort of a balance between employee welfare, but the use of technology and security in terms of the protection against the potential spread of the virus within a working environment. You've only seen this week recently, I think it's a chicken factory in Anglesey, I think, had to be sort of have its own lockdown because of an absolute massive explosion in cases. And I think companies are going to be really reticent to sort of go back with just a couple of pots of hand gel and a few wipes dotted around on desks. The Rock model is a complete, almost kind of employee journey redesign through a building, through technology such as near field tracking to show where people have been in the building. If they do test positive in subsequent days, the people they come into contact with can be informed, a bit like a track and trace, but at an isolated level. So other things such as temperature checks and monitoring that would deactivate your swipe pass. So if you are I guess hot, you won't actually be allowed in until you have an examination. So there's some great pieces of technology, you know, booking, scheduling hot desks, making sure cleaners come and clean, all that routine. So there's all that. Just imagine that if you're in a big London skyscraper and you've got, you know, six or seven floors that you have to sort of coordinate 2,000-3,000 people, and that's assuming that the business is all still there for those 2,000-3,000 people to do. So I think some of those companies will be it'll be a long way off. But then from all of the technology and infrastructure side of things, what you will have is a really sort of unseen employee welfare strategy. You know, people I imagine, you know, in the cities who perhaps I've relied on public transport. Even we saying I just don't feel ready to go in yet, and you've got to manage from an HR perspective what the kind of legislation is, where the company stands in insisting they come in versus giving them the opportunity to come in when they're ready. So so I think there's going to be numerous things that we're going to hear about where perhaps companies might make mistakes and say, you know, we're ready to reopen, but then in hindsight they go, actually our people aren't ready to come back. And I think that's going to be a big hurdle for big organizations. There's going to be still commercial implications, I think, for organizations and businesses to become sort of ready to open, not least all the technology things that I explained from a ROC point of view and what they've identified as the things people need.
I think it's going to go beyond as well. I think we're going to see a transition period now. That's been the catalyst has been the pandemic, the lockdown, working from home. Now we're going to see a transition period where new working models are going to come to the fore, because at the moment nobody really knows how it's going to pan out. And I think you know, in 18 to 24 months time, there will be 4 or 5 different working models out there that people would have refined and are going to be becoming the norms, you know, and that's what people will be learning in their management courses and things like that. And that right now we're on the cusp of that. We haven't even got there yet, but it's great. I think that we've had this catalyst, but like you say, that culture piece is so important now that we don't, that companies don't alienate themselves from the workforce and alienate themselves from their customers, which is what we're going to come on to. So, you know, let's move on to that piece. Let's move on to the consumer side rather than the internal comms side. How are reputations going to be coming into this? And we were talking earlier, weren't we, about that honesty piece, but we'll come on to that in a minute. But how are reputations going to be affected from what's happened in lockdown?
So I had a thought about this in terms of those sort of middle of the road businesses. So not the sort of market leaders that lead by example in a particular sector, and not then the small, personable, independent, family run business, because they're really warm. They're very, very all over social media. You know, we've got the Document House in Newbury, independent business. You've got food menu that they're laying on, you know, real offers. You feel like you've got a connection with the owners of that business. And then likewise, the Bowler's Arms. I mean, I keep mentioning pubs, but it feels more important. It feels very personal for them, and because you feel close to them. And then at the other end of the scale, there's the emails you get through from the chief executive of British Airways, because I'm one of the, you know, I've got one of the app, the frequent flyer app, and I'm getting updates from BA saying, you know, here's what we're doing. I think what's going to be interesting is they're covered on both ends of the spectrum in a way, because the smaller businesses, the independents, the document houses, the Swiss world can control their own comms. The bigger companies have got the might of a PR machine driving them. But what I think is where the risk is, I think, is in the middle-sized businesses, because they might sit awkwardly between the two. And I think sometimes not doing anything and not showing anything, whether that be sympathy for the way in which they offer their services, maybe discounted, maybe reflecting a different consumer requirement now. It's going to be really awkward to for those middle-sized businesses, medium-sized businesses, to sort of go back to business as usual. They kind of need to, but maybe they sit awkwardly between, like I say, between the small and the larger businesses. And I think, to your point on sort of reputation management around that, and again, in some cases, crisis management, they might already be dealing with, I don't know, through no fault of their own, some contractual requirements that their customers had signed up to, let's say. Landlords, for example, if you've rented off a group, let's say you've rented a small unit that's been shut, and what concessions have they volunteered, but what they may not be obliged to volunteer those concessions during this time. So it's like, you know, how are they going to not be perceived as tyrants, when they're opening up, and how are their services going to adapt around price point at a time when they desperately need to rectify their losses? That's a difficult balance. I don't know, you know, like we always said at the beginning of this call, I don't want to kind of make these predictions as that I think I know what they should do. I don't, but I imagine it's a very difficult, fine line to balance between sort of philanthropy and recognition and charity versus their urgent need to get commercially back on track. Yeah.
Let's talk about the messaging for a minute. Let's go into the marketing side, and let's consider those businesses that are going to be struggling there. I will make a prediction. I'm going to make a slight prediction. I predict that we're going to have a lot of the marketing messages that will come out now, the go-to marketing message that we'll see a lot of coming out of here will be that we were here with you. You know, we went through this together, that type of thing, and you know, testimonial side, case study style, whatever it means, showcasing a way of highlighting that, or having a way of highlighting that. I think that's going to become a bit of a norm.
Yeah, funny enough, and I will plug this T-shirt from the Globe. It's a charity T-shirt that the Globe put together. Again, I mentioned last time, and I said I'd wear it because, in a way, this represents what we've gone through. And the T-shirt was put together by an artist who, I think his name's Jamie, who did the illustration, and then Squeegee and Ink. They're a local screen print business in Newbury, and they I think kindly put all the screen printing side of it together. It's like the memories of lockdown, you know, it's all the things that have been both important and powerful, such as the NHS, but then other things that people have, you know, just adapted to, watching, you know, the Lion King, you know, Joe Exotic on Netflix, but that makes the story. And I you know, if I was back in the advertising industry in London and we were receiving ad agency briefs, I would love to get the brief that is help write and communicate our lockdown story, you know, even if it is a big organization. So I've worked with, you know, lots of banks in the past, Santander and Barclays. As much as they seem very faceless, when you are looking at their who they are as a in terms of their brand personality, made up by their people will be the ones that will tell the story. I mean, the last thing you'd believe is the sort of scripted chief exec that I've been there with you, because, you know, maybe you've been there with us doing lengths of your outdoor pool, but it's the people at the you know, in branch and things like that which will tell their story and help tell the story. It's Howard. Howard. Yeah, where is he? I'm sure he's off the rails, that lad. He's actually locked down. Against his will. But no, I think I think that's where the stories are going to sit. It's going to sit with the people, and that, like I say, if I was with my former creative writer Craig Robinson, we'd probably be relishing the brief that would say, you know, help tell our lockdown story. You know, here's Pat's kind of, you know, worked with us 25 years. An absolute character. You've got to interview her and just articulate that story. It could be, it could be a really lovely animation, an illustration, a series of images that play along to a narration and some poetry. And I think actually, just while I sort of think about it, there's been a lot of creativity on social media, Facebook, that people have, you know, I mean, not least TikTok and the creativity that's gone into that, but other people doing poems and writing songs, and I've seen loads of stuff that have allowed people the time to be creative, and that's been something. So I think always got to remember to answer your question. The stories will come from the creativity of the people, I think. And if we're talking business, I think that's the businesses and the comms teams within those businesses need to release that creativity within their people to tell those stories. Or if we're talking about the consumer side of it, those stories need to be heard by the consumers. So, I mean, actually, you mentioned it in the sporting arena, where, you know, what have lockdown rugby teams been doing to tell their story and help, you know, help reconnect with their fans and things. That's a really interesting angle that we were discussing. Anyway. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's it. We were talking about Worcester Warriors, weren't we? Who have been out there in the community, delivering food packages, doing all these things. And for sports clubs at the moment, they aren't able to share that content that builds fanaticism, you know, that builds that gets the passion behind them, because there's no matches, there's no games happening. You know, often you can pull that through by putting on classic content like old games, things like that, and just remind people of great memories and things like that to build that fanaticism. But you can do it from that CSR piece. And the beauty of what I said to you, the beauty I think that will come from it, which is why we brought it up earlier, is that it's normally your CSR story is speckled in between the main event, your match day preview, your match day reaction, your match day coverage, or your sponsorship activations and all that sort of activity, and it gets speckled in. Whereas now you have a real opportunity for your CSR content to be your primary content. It's the only stuff that you can talk about right now. And so you should get more, you should get the engagement you would normally be reserving for your primary content. And that's a great opportunity. And I think it's going to fuel things, or I think it should fuel things as we come out the other side. And that's just general CSR. I think we should see a real catalyst, a real ignition of CSR activities as being promotional, being utilized with promotional content as well. Using CSR to build that brand piece a lot more effectively, a lot more, rather than just sort of being a token piece that it's been growing that way, I know, but I think we'll see a big shift now.
If you were to say to me, would I believe that communications and marketing and branding, I mean, it's even in an advertising sense, the power of persuasion, making people want something. It never sits well with me, that. I mean, I love brands and stuff, and I always get obsessed with fads. But so at least I sort of practice what I preach by, buying things. I've even bought an electric scooter to try and be a bit eco-friendly. Don't worry about it. I won't ride it in the day, because my kids will be way too embarrassed to sort of go under the shadow of darkness. But but take that side. I think that authentic stories around feeling connected to the people behind a brand, I think is absolutely something that should be part of the mix now of communications, not just a kind of in these unprecedented times, here's a word from our chief exec, that some sort of faceless grey person in a ivory tower. But actually, if a business is going to connect with its audience, you want to know that the leadership and the kind of decision makers within that business are doing things for the right reasons and connecting with, like you say, with the audience, the people who hand over the money in a meaningful way. And I think that could change. You're right. That could become the norm.
I think everybody's pounds and pennies are going to become a lot more precious now for even if it's only for the short term. And ultimately, why would you give your hard-earned and precious pounds and pennies away to a company if their competitor sat right over here putting 1/3 of that back into community projects and giving back, compared to the one that isn't? I mean, you're just going to get more value out of your money, aren't you? And it's been this pandemic, this catalyst for this shift towards this community thinking, this backward sort of, this back to being kind of out of that kind of, we've just come out of that retail consumer, what am I thinking of? The hamster wheel, they've come off that for a little bit, everybody's kind of reassessed, and now I think there is going to be an impact on brand loyalty as a reassessment. I
think one of the things I said last time was, and this was in the light of some of the big announcements that Wetherspoons had made, which went down like a pint of their out-of-date bitter, and the way they treated their people originally, I don't know whether they did a U-turn on that, but it was hideous. And I think we talked about Nick, I sort of said, local loyalty, and the idea of reinstating some value and meaning in the buying decisions and the consumer decisions you make. So maybe you don't go for the cheapest. And I know this could just be like, trying to be sort of romantic, but I'd rather buy a bit less, pay a little bit more, and know that the where I bought it from, there's actually a bit of ethical value around that. And I know that I don't know, I'm torn with that, because I'm you know, having four kids, I'm sort of very bulk buy as a family, and so
I think you're. I've been talking about this a lot, and I think you're on the cusp of what everybody else. They're kind of there at the moment. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And I think it's more about wealth, and it's about currency. I think that's what's going to come out of this. We've got, you know, currency buys bread, but it doesn't necessarily buy wealth. And I think that's what we're going to come out of is, you know, we don't need to worry about. We just need to take responsibility for things a bit more, but also just understand what that wealth piece is, because. But anyway, we're going to get really deep now. We're going to go.
No, and we promised we wouldn't go deep. We're nearly getting there, but what I think you're right. I don't begrudge a business that, as it positions itself on price, you know, where it's just we are the cheapest. It's fine, but I just think that when lots of people now have spent a lot of time at home reevaluating what's important to them. And, you know, what decisions people make. You mentioned the career choices, the fact that it used to be, oh, do you work full-time or part-time? And that was it. Now the way in which work fits in with your life, what money you need to spend on things, the kind of this idea that you think you need to change your car every 3 years, you need to go on holiday, you know, all this sort of consumerism, people have probably reevaluated that. And I think then at the kind of more poetic side of things, that might have a knock-on effect with local businesses, the barbers, the little independent pubs of this world, the restaurants, and I don't know, maybe big chains, big tax avoidance kind of monopolies might have to think again about their mass expansion in, you know, and at the expense of the small independents. I was working with a client, work very closely with a client in the optometry business, and you know, the big Specsavers, Vision Expresses have just smashed the small independent opticians, you know, on purely frame and frame contact lens subscriptions and frame retail. It's it's completely devalued. I know here's another digression, Neil, coming up. Sorry about this, but you know that sort of is the point. You know, you've got an optician's every fourth shop, and their priority is to upsell lenses and frames. And the value of actual optometry, the relationship you have with your optometrist, you know, whether it's dry eye or, you know, whether you sort of looking after your eyes and like a doctor looks after you, like your GP looks after you, it's changed because the methodology of an optician is volume sales, mass audience volume sales on direct debits. And, you know, that in a nutshell, is probably some of the things that we're going to see change, I think. Maybe. That's, again, dreamy romance and romantic stuff.
I romantically, I agree. I think because I've always felt that actually digital should be bringing us back. It should be bringing us in a full circle. You know, we've lost the need for your local butchers, your local shop, you know, your local your local post office. Lost the need for that as globalization has seemed ahead, that its bottom line and everything, everybody's merged and it's become this global entity. But because of digital now, you can have anything you want delivered to your door. Yeah. And I think should be, and I think this pandemic should be a catalyst for that too, is that why now is the time to have the local pub, the local butcher, the local fishmonger, the local greengrocers in the village.
Supplied by,
because you can do your main shop for your Branston pickle and all that sort of stuff delivered to your door. You can buy all the random crazy stuff off Amazon or wherever it may be. But for just dipping out to get sausages on your Saturday morning, you know, you want to just walk up to the top of the shop. And I think there might be a movement like that. I don't think you're going to have a sausage, you know, a sausage shop, a butcher's, and a fishmonger. You'll probably just have one. But I think, you know, seen it with pubs and things moving sort of a more deli type experience. And I think you'll see it. I think we'll see this sort of full circle. Yeah,
it's sort of quite sort of continental, as they used to call it. I don't think they use that word anymore, where, you know, you go to a little Spanish town and you will have row upon row of lovely little independent shops. It seems to be, you know, there seems to be enough people to make it affordable and viable, those businesses, you know, even with a siesta. And yet you wander up the high street in any sort of middle-sized town in the UK and it's just identical, you know, bookmakers and, you know, vape shops and mobile phone cases, and, you know, worthy businesses, but not en masse, you know. And yeah, I totally get it. I mean, the other thing is, which I'm slightly sort of aware of, is I'm 46, and I wonder if that romance is slightly because of my age as well. Whereas maybe people who are in their 20s are like, "What's he on about?" Last thing I want to do is go and buy, a kilo of faggots to make some pie at the weekend from a butcher. No, and it might. I like baking, yeah. Yeah, maybe it's the sort of age as well. So apologies.
Yeah, but I think it is, isn't it? It definitely is your age. I mean, I wake up on a Friday. I just want to get home and I don't want to go out. And that's a big conflict for anybody in the office. A lot of them will just want to go out on a Friday night or the juniors, But
yeah.
My daughter can't.
Yeah, I was just saying, my daughter can't wait for the walkabout to open. I mean, a mock Australian themed bar that sells, I don't know, shots at £1 a go. I mean, I guess that's her butcher's. That's her patisserie. Anyway, waffling.
We have had a question actually, which we glanced over quickly because we were in the depths of the conversation. But Nathan has asked, do you feel that we will get to the point where people will be forced to come back, and how would that work? So this came in earlier when we were talking about our work environments. Right.
Yeah. See, it's a really good question, Nathan. And I think businesses, and if the sort of HR and welfare teams of any size company. I mean, I always think that we talk about business because maybe this is me, but working as former ad agencies in London, I just think of big organizations, and maybe their policies and their ability to create lots of flexibility is superb because they're backers. They might even be a PLC. Their reputation and the decisions they make directly affect their commercial standing. Whereas if you're a 20 strong, small manufacturer in the Midlands making, I remember doing some work with John Smedley, the 150-year-old tailor in the Midlands, and they're, again, a small business, but what's their strategy in coming back? And they're going to be torn, to your question, Nathan, between sort of setting down the rules and say, well, you've got to, or what, disciplinary, is there some sort of redundancy strategy where you can have a sort of one of these, what they call a compromise agreement based on you weren't comfortable with the way we set up our business for you to return. We followed the rules, but you weren't comfortable with it. There's some sort of compromise. I mean, a employment lawyer, or certainly, employment lawyers are probably going over that with a fine-tooth comb, because it certainly won't be, in anyone's employment contract about the effects of returning to work after a pandemic, I'm sure. But it's a really good question, Nathan, and I hope businesses, and where they can and afford to, respect the flexibility and requirements of the employee. But equally, I feel for the employer, because they are going to be just screaming to try and get this year back online. I mean, we've lost a full financial quarter pretty much. That's just devastating, particularly the one that we've lost as well. It's not like the sort of the winter one. It's a big one. Yeah. Good question. And again, I just hope that businesses do the right thing for their people, but that if I don't know if it's if the legislation at a government level allows it, that the businesses are still supported so they can do the right thing for their people, rather than having to make some horrendous decisions because of financial reasons.
Yeah. Just to, because I'm aware of the time now, just to sort of start wrapping things up and summarising a bit.
Well done. Yeah.
Coming back to what's your lockdown story and how do you tell it? What would be your top points for people to be considering about their story and as they build this messaging now?
Good question. So let me look at it from two positions. The the larger organization needs to, I think, create or reinforce their identity as an employer, what they stand for and what they stand for as a business, and the respect and value they put in their people. I think employer brands are going to now have a component baked in, which would be as a result of the learnings from this time. So in that would be not that people will kind of keep asking forevermore how you supported your employees through lockdown as part of their job interview, but it might actually become policy to say, you know, not necessarily in a pandemic situation, because let's fingers crossed there's not many more in our lifetime, but let's reevaluate our employee welfare strategy and our employee comms. So I think the story will come from the businesses demonstrating you know, best practice, let's say, in what that becomes. And I think hopefully businesses will learn from that rather than it being a competitive edge. You know, we've got best sort of, you know, part of the comps and bends type scenario is you've got this flexibility around how and where you work. But let's hope that becomes part of the fabric of organizations. And then actually at the smaller end, let the people in those businesses tell the story on behalf of those companies. So again, the lockdown story around their supply chain, what they've introduced, forced to introduce some technology that they never thought they would have needed to, but now they have done, is completely transformed the way that they're working in terms of maybe faster, less expensive, you know, this idea of bringing in technology for deliveries, you know, engaging with consumers in the home a lot more rather than people coming to them. And I think those stories are going to be really interesting, innovative business stories where such a transformation has taken place through change and enforced change, and that's actually created the story in itself. And as I say, you know, myself and Dave, my business colleague at Media Fusion, we're already starting to help write those stories for businesses as and when they come out. So a lot of the social media that you'll see in terms of the pre-booked marketing and advertising space is not going to be about, hey, we're open, products, come and see us, you know, generic type messages. I think there's a lot of it's going to have that real true authenticity of their lockdown story. And yeah, we're already seeing sort of businesses trying to kind of ease into opening up. I think it was Luca who you interviewed the other day, said there's no time like the present, you know, 60 or 70% reduction in media cost at the moment because of so many of the campaigns that would have been pre-booking that space have been pulled, that's that sort of real estate, that inventory of digital media is available. So don't wait to open up all on one day and suddenly the war for your customer is back on and everyone's competing. It's a noise. Start to sort of ease it in now. You know, there's no better time to almost ease in those campaign stories and start getting, you know, things going again if you're running a business and reconnecting with your audience. Yeah, rather than sort of, you know, pulling a big lever on one day and having to all start at the same time. If I answer your question.
I think for me, a benchmark will be the first people to make some humor. I don't think you can make humor of the pandemic, obviously, because there's such, you know, so many deaths and such sadness from it. But people that have a humor on a quirk around it. I mean, one example is we've seen, because we've been going to the office, we've seen all the shops putting their 2 meters everywhere. Which you'll mention today, you know, the stickers on the floor, the 2 meters, stand here, stand here. And then Joe's gone, we'll make it 1 meter. So, you know, all those people are like,
there's people scraping off the pavement.
That could be a nice social media post right now. Just like, we'll go again, or you know what I mean? I'm willing to see that, because that's often a milestone of when it's starting to evolve and we're on the way out.
Can we find humor in adversity? And I think you do, don't you? I think as terribly sad it would be. Yeah,
you can find humor in areas of it, not you know the whole,
not in it. Yeah, no, not in it. And
nothing funny about it. But that scenario where shops have just spent 2 weeks frantically putting all these stickers down because, and then, you know, the week after they open, everybody's like, oh, we'll do 1 meter now. There could be a bit in that little bit there, which retail might be able to highlight and get, you know, generate some engagement and some reach from something humorous. And I'm talking social, you know. Wider campaigns, I think we got those truthful pieces to start with.
Yeah, more meaningful pieces. And, you know, I mean, it's I think I said to you that if you're in a sort of call center business, you know, I'm with EE and they're kind of constantly sort of sending me messages, you know, there might be the times when, you know, call center handlers dealing with customers are probably going to have to go through some training that they may actually, based on the sheer volume of people who have lost a loved one during this time, I mean, sensitive to the situation that, you know, if you're in insurance, for example, in such an increase in people who've died. And that, again, is going to be a sort of very poignant factor in people going back to work and assuming it's not business as usual at the other end of the phone, you know, as to what that family have been through or whatever, not least in their jobs, maybe in financial situations, but also, you know, following, you know, maybe the loss of elderly relatives and stuff like that, which we've all sort of heard about. So yeah, it's a fine balance. I think if the messages are, if the kind of British sense of humour is starting to come back, I feel confident that we are on our way to something good out of it. But you're right, it's so we're not there yet, are we? And yet, is it July 4th is the big day for the beer garden.
Let's wait and see after that. I mean, you know, we look at what's happening around Europe at the moment with our numbers rising. We just don't know. We really don't know. We'll have to wait and see in September. We've got a question from Gemma. With that in mind, this is from earlier. Usual winter lockdown. Do you think that will change this year so businesses can catch up? This is when we were talking about the quarter, its impact on one of the biggest quarters. Yeah,
okay. Putting me on the spot. One of the things I have recently looked at, and we cancelled our summer holiday, which is in August, and it was all fine, we could do, and the vouchers all that we got from BA was that we can use them up to 2022. I think what you might find, Gemma, is a real skew in seasonality, and I don't mean that in winter we'll be buying spring clothes and wearing t-shirts when it's freezing. I mean the things we do seasonally that we've had this big hole, we might then do further into the end, toward the end of the year. So I think not I'm an expert in different industries, but I do think where industries have seasonality and potentially holes, so gaps in their service. One of the industries I do know about is property, and one of the things that there's been a backlog of is surveys. So whether that's a survey in your house to get yourself remortgaged, or surveying a house for development work, extensions, renovations, you know, the other one, structural engineering and stuff like that. So, but they've not gone away. All those jobs are there. They're just paused. And there is going to be a massive, it'll be a backwash into that gap that's been left. So I think, Gemma, your question's really interesting, because I think that for lots of industries, there will be the gap that's just meant that they've gone on pause. So the return will be there because the work's there. The others might find that they've missed a season, let's say fashion and fashion retail, you know, all the buying for winter 2020 would have happened in spring. That clearly those shows, the shows haven't gone on. The buying may not have happened. There might again be a sort of a different seasonality shift there. That means that a lot of stuff that would have happened with a lot of lead time is now had to sort of be compressed. So yeah, I just hope and fingers crossed that it is like that, and it isn't just, you know, a quarter of someone's year wiped out for good. Some cases maybe that is.
Yeah, in some cases I think it's inevitable, but hopefully, you know, if that is the case, they're a business that have been able to stabilize from the grants and the backload and things like that. Hopefully, that will cover that void. It's not going to be great, but if it just allows that little bit of stability over that quarter, we'll be looking back now and just saying, well, at least we were able to, you know, keep our head and keep things stable. But I don't know. Okay, well, thank you very much. I think
Reckon?
I've taken enough of your time, Neil. We're literally going to come bang on 45 minutes any second now. 7 seconds.
I think we did all right, didn't we? I think we jumped from question to question reasonably swiftly without me going off into one of my poetic. Actually, I probably did, looking back. When I watched this back, I probably did go into it.
Man, let it out. I mean, it's all gold. So
I'm going to sing a song. Could get a guitar. Get the guitar. No, listen, Christian, absolutely amazing what you guys have been doing. I love the concept of IsoNation. I know that you won't mind me saying that, you know, you and I are going to talk a bit more about what we can do to create something ongoing from this brilliantly put together concept. And yeah, Nifty, you, Rachel, Nick, and everyone sort of collaborating the way with all the sponsors as well, and the sort of founding partner businesses in collaborating. It's been brilliant. And I know that people probably go, oh, I haven't got no time to watch that. But as I watched back a few this morning, just to see if there were any nuggets of things that I could trig my memory on, and particularly the one that I thought was excellent with your former Chelsea colleague, Luca, there's going to be some good stuff here that actually, as it rolls on, you know, an open forum for business discussions that isn't kind of too contrived. It's a little bit, you know, we might only have 40, 50 people watch it, but it actually, it's going to be, you know, of interest. And again, as we say, let's make something of a legacy of this strategy and the IsoNation concept as well, which would be a great thing to be part of. So I really appreciate you inviting me back.
Well, thank you for the kind words. And yeah, we're looking forward to those discussions to see where this is going to go. We want to keep it going. We want to keep the community focused. We want to keep that expert opinion coming in. So, you know, what you just laid out there is probably where it's most likely going to be. And fingers crossed we get more and more people involved. And we still have more people coming on board. It's really exciting times.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. And if you enjoyed the show, please give us some love hearts. Don't forget to give us a share. If there's somebody that you think would benefit from listening to Neil's wisdom today, please tag them. And don't forget to like the IsoNation page if you don't already. Hi, Kirsty, he's just jumped on. Thanks for the questions, Gemma, Rachel. Thanks for everybody who's been on here. Nathan as well. And have a lovely afternoon. And thank you, Neil.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Christian. Have a good time, everyone. And listen, thanks for watching those who did.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Take care.